You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
This episode of the Tone Mob Podcast is brought to you by Mammoth Electronics. You may know these guys. Jacob was on an episode here a while back. They really support the whole, boutique pedal community in a huge capacity. And they've had their own DIY kits for a long time, but recently they just went through and redid them all. So they're now easier to assemble than ever. The instructions have been completely revamped, so even the complete novice can build these things. It's a great starting point for anybody interested in building their pedals. They also all come standard with powder coat and these really sweet looking graphics now. They're really cool kit builds. If you haven't looked into it, go over to mammothelectronics.com, do a little snooping around, and if you've been thinking about building a pedal in the past but were a little intimidated, it's never been better than it is now. They've got it all laid out there for you. So go to Mammoth Electronics and check them out. I'm really excited about this one, guys. You probably haven't seen it coming. It's a new concept in kind of the guitar gear podcast world, but nonetheless it's important because we all need this. So there's no reason to not announce the new partnership. We have the new sponsor for the show, and that is Blue TechFlex from Sinusoid Cables. No, your ears did not trick you. I did say that Sinusoid Cables offers Blue TechFlex as an option on your cables. I suppose that's not entirely new. They've offered that for a while, but hey, it looks really great. It protects your cable. It keeps it in good condition through the rigors of the road. And if by some freakish accident, your cable became damaged, well, don't worry. Those guys are going to take care of you because those cables have a 100-year warranty, which is good if you're a vampire or a pet parrot. And I haven't figured out what my angle is on this whole joke yet, but I'll figure it out at some point. The point is, you should check out sinusoidcables.com, build yourself some beautiful cables or let them do it. Doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to have a fine product. Sinusoidcables.com. Rock and roll. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have James Granuso of main.ace.fx. How you doing, man?
Hey. All right. How are you?
I'm pretty good. We already discussed the weather off the air, but we're basically on opposite sides of the country experiencing the same weather somehow.
Yeah.
Which is,
I don't know if you have humidity like we have in the East Coast, though.
It gets fairly sticky around here. It's not like Florida sticky, but it's a very wet part of the country. So we do have some humidity over here.
Oh, okay. We used to like California heat, I guess, all Arizona and stuff where it's dry.
No, Portland's wet. So. But enough about that. We've been trying to do this, or supposed to do this, for like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that?
Something like that, yeah. I think I met you at NAMM.
Like NAMM 20...
It was the first time that I went, and I've been 3 times now, so yeah, it's been quite a bit of time.
Okay, it must have been your second NAMM then, because I've only been to NAMM twice.
Okay.
I met you at the first one, so it's probably your second one. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah.
And we were like, yeah, we should
one
podcast. Yeah. Yeah, we should totally podcast sometime. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to record an episode. I was like, wait a second. Let me go through, sometimes it's like, I have a list of people who like have offered to come on, or we've talked about it. And, usually I just
go to the next person on the list, and that's what happens. And then I realized, like, there's some guys that have been on this list for a really long time. Maybe I should move them up to the front. So here we go.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm glad to have you on.
The honor to be speaking with you over phone apps is just fantastic.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Everyone's like, I've never been on a podcast before. I'm like, well, it's really exciting. It'll be just like when you're talking on the phone. It's going to be so unlike anything you've ever experienced before. But I suppose we can go ahead and get started into the meat and potatoes, as it were. Why don't we start off with the classic question of, what's your musical backstory, and how did it translate into you doing what you're doing today?
Well, music. I mean, where does anyone really think about where they start with music? But I think where it really, really came out for me was when I was younger, like middle school age, right around the early 90s. So
Okay.
all of that new alternative, the grunge, that whole Seattle sound was becoming popular. And it was such a break from usual radio stuff. And as a young kid, it was getting popular, so I was drawn to it pretty easily. And from there, as I got older, just started looking into more alternative, more like punk rock bands, and a lot of the bands I liked were using a lot of different effects. So when I was writing my own music, I naturally wanted to use a lot of effects.
Right.
And by being interested in them, just made me want to know how they worked. And then, that whole boring XYZ, then I started building them.
It's not. That's what we want to know about. What bands were you listening to that in particular?
Back when I was a kid, it was hands down Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though there was a lot of great bands at the time that were equally as popular and influential, they were the band that this made the most sense to me, and they were a band that had a lot of respect for other current artists that didn't get as much popularity that I was able to find out about. Like bands like Dinosaur Jr. and and then bands that they were influenced by, and bands that took influence from them. It was really just opened up a whole nice collection of music that has always been my favorite.
Right. So it's always been kind of the more heavier influence things.
Oh yeah,
for you?
Yeah. I mean, until you take it back to the earliest influences of a band's earlier influences, and eventually you get to some stuff that's older and softer, and the older I get, the more the more I enjoy and respect stuff that's not as rockin' as you would say.
Right. It's funny that you bring that up, because just yesterday, I was thinking about. Well, it was actually brought up to me on this show, like, I don't know, a long time ago, by when Adam from Satellite Amps was on. But I was listening to the Shags, mostly because I just remembered that, like, Kurt Cobain said that they were one of his favorite bands. You familiar with them?
A lot of reasons that got me into music.
Right.
I'm like, he likes. Oh, hang on, well, I gotta look it up.
Yeah. Have you listened to the Shags?
I have heard them. I'm not super familiar, but I have heard them in the past. Yeah.
It's just it's the craziest. We're gonna derail a little bit, but I have to talk about this because it was like
go for it.
The craziest thing I'd listened to them before, but kind of forgot about it. It's like these three girls who their father, this was in the 60s. Their father had a dream or a vision of some sort that his sons would die, and that something would happen with his sons. I can't remember what that part was, and that his daughters would be in a famous rock band. And so he like kind of forced them to like play like these department store instruments and like play these songs that they wrote. And no one seems to be in agreement on this band at all, whether they were completely musically inept and like awful, or if they were like ahead of their time and like avant-garde and in some weird way.
Right, yeah.
But if you listen to them, it's the weirdest it's the strangest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. I did not know that story, but the music itself is it's definitely out there for whatever year it was, or
1969 is when their only album came out.
Okay.
And then while I was going down this strange rabbit hole last night, I found that they're actually going to be reuniting and performing at a festival this year, I guess, which is just kind of mind-blowing. But anyway, that has nothing to do with anything, but that was a rabbit hole I went down yesterday.
Hey. Very cool.
So did you play in bands, or were you mostly by yourself, or how did that, let's fill in some of those gaps there.
I've played in bands. I've always tried to do something musically, but being on the musician side of things, I was never really the best player. And
I can relate.
Not that I'm really any better now. So any musical ventures that I undertook never really worked out so well, which then really got me a lot more excited about being behind the scenes, making the instruments and not actually playing them.
Right. So what was it? How did you get your start building pedals? Did you start with kits? Did you start modding things, or there's usually a point A to point B situation there?
Yeah, I had read about some mods to do, to make newer pedals sound more vintage, and just changing things around, but nothing was really that mind blowing or that intense. I wanted to not just know how to change things, but more how to actually build them. So I did start with a kit, or specifically started just with a kit circuit board,
mm-hmm.
and then sourced all the parts on my own. Which, I mean, looking back on it, really didn't make a difference, because the kit comes with the parts, you just put them together, But me in the this is my first project version of me was like, no, I'm gonna look up all these electronics websites that I've never heard of before, and source all these parts. And it took me, I don't know, God knows how long to get parts for this. It was an Octavia Octafuzz clone.
Sweet.
Where I should have just bought the kit just outright, but I thought I was being really, really cutting edge by getting everything out.
Yeah.
So, and for anyone else out there, whether you build or not, if you're familiar with large, like part supply websites, it's not a good idea to try to source parts from Mauser for one pedal.
No.
If they're going through just tens of and hundreds of thousands of different listings for all these little tiny parts that I didn't really even know what they did yet. Trying to figure out how to do it was a little silly.
Right. So you started with the Octavia clone, and then did you sell that? Did you it's not very often that people go from I built a kit to now I have a pedal company and I am doing this. Like, what was kind of the next thing?
I started with that, but I really wasn't happy having just built it. Like, I wanted to know how to really read the schematics and how to actually put it together. So I started breadboarding things.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, I was just breadboarding, other projects, things that already existed. But after I figured out how to breadboard them, I wanted to figure out how to do my own circuit boards. Just doing point to point on perf board. So I was still, so technically, I guess you would call it a kit, because I was following a schematic from a kit.
Right.
But I was not using their PCBs or anything. I was actually making the circuit boards myself, which I continued to do when I actually ended up starting to build pedals for sale. I was still building those circuit boards on my own. But those early ones
on perf board, or were you acid etching your own boards?
Oh, no, I was actually just doing point to point through.
Oh, gotcha.
Which was a pain.
Yes.
But it was in a lot of ways like a lot of things that how I do a lot of things. It's just if it's the easiest, or it's not necessarily the easiest, but if it's something that I can do myself without having to learn a whole new skill set, then I just go with it, even if it takes me, god awful amount of time.
Mm-hmm. What were the first pedals that you were making that you were selling?
The first, man, those are all way long gone now as far as their availability now.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest one that I have is probably what is still known to people as the Reverend Mother, but which
Okay.
I reconfigured it and I re-released it at NAMM, but I have not pursued it as far as selling it yet, but I kind of retweaked it a little bit, and it's going to be re-released soon as it's going to be called the Navigator. And
Okay.
that is the oldest one that I have.
Okay. What is that specifically for the listeners?
That is a fuzz bass style, or a double fuzz bass style fuzz and a boost, Rangemaster style boost, which is those two channels. Fuzz has a toggle switch to click into a second fuzz, so you can layer cascade two fuzzes together, and the boost is just a simple signal boost with a fair amount of drive breakup.
Nice. Yeah, two fuzzes. I'm all about that. That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, well, fuzz is basically has been the real meat of what I've been doing, with a few exceptions, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been sticking to, because that's what I've always liked to play.
Lots of fuzz. Yeah, that's why you and I. Well, I knew we would get along famously. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I got. I'm just looking at my mess around me of fuzz pedals. It's a sick. My wife thinks I have a sickness. I just say it's okay. It's for R&D. It's fine. It's not. I can justify it somehow. So you started selling those. Was this an intentional process for you? Because some people in this industry, it seems like they kind of fall into having a business. They're like, oh, I made it and I put it on eBay or Reverb or something, and then it sold, and then so I made another one and somebody else bought it. And it seems like there's a few people that are very intentional about starting their companies, and a few that just kind of, they're like, well, now I got this business. So
yeah, I would think it probably half and half.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always want to be doing something musical, and like I said, my success as a player was very, very less than
minimal.
And on top of that, I always need some sort of hobby. I need something to keep me busy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I started doing this as a way to be like, oh, you know what? I learned how to build this. I'm gonna make some money.
Mm-hmm.
More about like, when there's a difference between sitting around in your room playing your guitar, strumming to yourself, versus then being in a band and having a name. Whether or not anyone ever hears you, you may never leave the garage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is still a lot different. Yeah.
It gives you more, at least for me, it gives you more drive. So to sit around building pedals is great, but to actually have a name to attach to them and have some uniformity over how things look and sound, just really kind of wrapped it up nicely for me. And if people buy them, that's great. If they don't, I'm still going to build them. So.
Right. Regardless, it's something so it's basically kind of giving the hobby a reason to exist more so than just because you want to do it type of thing. If I follow you.
Fair to say, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, how did you settle on your name? Like, where did that come from?
That was really there's really actually nothing to it other than it's just an old inside joke. with a couple of buddies, like from a bar late one night. Really, there's really nothing. I wish there was something like cool, like I had like big description of it means, the cosmic flow of this and that, and there's nothing to it, and it was just a couple drunk idiots laughing about crap at a bar.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's how the best stuff comes out, right? I mean,
yeah.
Didn't Keith Richards write "Satisfaction" while he was passed out? Something like that.
I believe that, or he woke up with the idea and for the riff, and then just like just be roused from this dream. It's like, oh hey, I gotta write this down
quick,
and
then back to sleep. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe that was your satisfaction moment. Who knows?
I should tell people that Keith Richards was another time woken up from his sleep and came up with this name and had to call me up immediately.
He immediately called me up. James, I've got one for you. All right, quick, lay it on me, Keith. We don't know how much longer you're going to be around.
He's going to be around. He's going to live forever.
Yeah, it's good when after we've nuked each other to death, we're just going to have all that's left will be cockroaches and Keith Richards. That's all we're going to have left. That's the theory I'm going with.
I think aren't Twinkies proven to withstand like decay or something like that?
I've heard that, but according to Zombieland, they do have a shelf life, is what Woody Harrelson told me. So I'm gonna go with.
I haven't eaten one of those in years, but I'm assuming they have some sort of expiration date on them.
Yeah. He said. He dispelled the rumor, and I mean, if Woody Harrelson says it, it must be true, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I should put that on a T-shirt. So why don't we talk about kind of like what's in the lineup, what you currently have available for sale. We talked about one that you don't have available for sale, but what's out there and kind of what are the stories behind some of those products?
Okay, yeah, so I have, like I said, I have the Reverend Mother soon to be Navigator, which yes, we got went through that is not available currently. Well, it's not unavailable. There's just no information about it. So if anyone listens and
they want one,
I will say this to anyone who is listening, and it's one of those long things I gotta say. If you do happen to find yourself on my website and do hear and see the Reverend Mother demos and packaging, and and you're into it, I still can produce them. It'll just be under a different name with some different artwork, which is just not there. So site says unavailable, but talk to me. It's still all good. So with that's out of the way. Same deal with the Bad Tina synthesizer. I shut that down and reworked that into a completely different 2-channel double dual oscillator. So it's the same as it had been, but it's just twice as much with momentary buttons instead of latching foot switches to activate the oscillations.
Sweet. Oh, I remember playing that. That one stuck out to me. Yes.
At NAMM recently.
Yes.
So you saw the new version. So that will be back as the LV426. But again, not there. But I think it's cool. Just talk to me. It's still, I'm not unable to build them. I've just been too busy to snap photos and do all the, web design stuff to get it up there. So
right.
That's out of the way. Stuff that's actually there, good to go, is my Shell Shock Fuzz Tremolo, which has been a favorite of mine, and people that hear it are usually pretty impressed with it. It's just a nice full, very big muff sounding fuzz with a tremolo on a second channel that can alter tremolo speeds with a third foot switch. So which you will cut the time in half or speed it up double, depending on which mode you start in. Gotcha. And there's different wave shapes, so you can go have a nice. just like easy cruising sine wave or a super, super choppy square wave. It's really nice to mix with the fuzz and can do a lot of really interesting, experimental type stuff.
Nice. But tremolo and fuzz are sometimes, I don't know why, not really thought of in the same as being complementary to each other, but I find them to work very nicely together.
Yeah, I never thought about it. I never thought about it either. I had the idea for the tremolo, and I had this fuzz pedal available under a different name, and I was actually working on a custom project for Stephen Brodsky, who's the frontman from Cave In, now fronts Mutoid Man.
Yep.
And he was the one that actually suggested me, hey, I'd love to do something with fuzz, and tremolo on it would be really cool. So I was like, well, hey, I got this fuzz that I think sounds really good, and I've got this tremolo idea that I haven't actually used yet. Let me put them together. And the result was really, really nice. So I just kept making them.
That's a good, hey, if it turns out good, then why not,
Yeah,
That's,
it was definitely a nice interjection that put me down a good path, I think.
Steven seems like he has his several connections with. I know him and Ryan over at Fuzzrocious talk and do things together frequently. It seems like you East Coast New Jersey people, a lot of people have connections to him over there, or at least that's the way it seems to me. Maybe I'm imagining things that aren't there, but is that? Would you say that's accurate?
No, I mean, from at least the way I see it, it's he's a pretty accessible guy that also really likes effects and is really really particular and very active in seeking out his guitar tone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's always makes himself available to manufacturers, or even just anybody. But also him being local is just that everyone that is sort of into the same music and is generally geographically close will eventually their paths will cross.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha.
I think that's where you find like a music someone like Steve he's in Brooklyn. Both me and Ryan are in New Jersey. So it's just when you're looking for gear, and us making gear is looking for people to use it.
Right.
It's eventually it's gonna cross.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I actually reached out to him, only because I knew what a big gear collector he was, and I was I guess early 2000s or whatever, when I first heard Cave In, was always like a really big Cave In fan. So for me to reach out with him was kind of like, what? Let me just see if someone that I really like musically will play some of my stuff.
Right.
So for me, it was kind of like, oh yeah, wow, I feel so cool now.
I'm one of the cool kids. This is great. Yeah, it is cool though. I mean, it's a people. What I've realized from doing this is not that I've talked to any quote unquote famous people or whatever, but everyone I've said this before, in the gear industry and musicians in general, it seems like everyone they're just dudes.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's pretty chill for the most part. There's not nearly as much ego as you would think, especially not in the gear scene, but a lot of these musicians are just they're pretty cool, we're all musicians, we're all probably wired in a similar way. And most people are pretty chill, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and the whole idea of someone being famous, or I guess maybe a celebrity, or it's all relative. Because I remember the first time I came back from my first NAMM, talking to my wife about it, and I was all excited, being like, "Oh, how was it? Did you meet anyone cool?" I was like, "Well, I got to meet Zach Vex and Robert Keeley and Mike Matthews," and she's just like, who's that? Like, what is it? And I was like, never mind, it's pedal stuff.
I know what you mean.
For me to meet those guys was kind of, they were the people that were making pedals before I even thought about building anything myself.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to meet them was sort of, I guess, my equivalent of, a celebrity, whatever. But yeah, like you said, in the end, they're just dudes,
Totally.
Just, and now I check in with everyone when I go to NAMM now. How you doing? How you been? And, it's just become, it's just saying hi to someone you know.
No, exactly. It's really funny because I remember being like telling my wife when I got back for my first NAMM, I was like, yeah, it was great. I went out to this thing and I was just hanging out with Rob eating burritos. It was cool. And she's like, so you hung out with some dude and ate burritos? I was like, no, but it's Robert Healy. She's like, I don't know. So
you hung out with some dude and
you hung out with a dude, some nerd who makes pedals is what she's thinking. I'm like, yeah, but fine. And I tried to explain to her, like, I remember like when I started the podcast, like pretty early on, Brian Wampler, sent me an email. Hey, would you be interested in having me on the show? And I'm like, what? Of course. Your podcast is half the reason that I'm even doing a gear podcast right now. Yeah. And now fast forward 2 years or whatever it's been, and that's like now I'm on his show every week, and it's like this weird like flip flop of things. But everyone's just cool. That's just what I've kind of determined, basically.
It cuts. Everyone gets cut down to being just a regular person. At the end of it, you strip out all the, the musician or the actor or whatever it is that makes someone, or to the general public's mind, famous, and they're just a regular person that hopefully will be cool, because then it's just like shatters all your dreams. And you're like, oh my god, he was not cool,
right?
And then you have to go back thinking that this person you idealized is just a jerk.
Well, yeah, and fortunately that hasn't really happened yet. But it's just we kind of forget that, like, quote unquote celebrities or people that we know, like, it's hard to imagine. I don't know, like, I don't know. It's hard to imagine, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example, like Sean Connery sitting around eating potato chips, but he totally does. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because at the end, he's just a guy, and and then I think we're lucky though. In this scene, with gear, the people that make it, and the musicians that are actually pretty passionate about it, tend to be nice people.
Yeah,
because they understand. Like, I think something about having like a larger pedal board, or just a more focus on your guitar tone. Just you seem to be more. It seems to be just like a cooler person. Not in like you like cooler in like like cool points, but
no,
cool.
I know what you mean.
You're laid back. You're open to meeting people, and you're friendly, and you're not going to be a jerk.
I think it goes back to, like, if you notice, like, most gearhead type people tend to get along. I think it's just the scene and the kind of process of going through and finding that ultimate guitar tone, quote unquote, it attracts a certain type of person. And so when similar minded people get together, they tend to all get along pretty good, when a bunch of car guys get together, they all get along pretty good because they're all car guys, minus the whole Ford Chevy rivalry or something.
Yeah. But that, especially with pedal builders, man. It's like the community is it's so much fun to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone like, we all got into this because we're musicians, and not even that, because we're musicians, and we also love pedals. We're guys that weren't just happy just plugging into an amp, cranking it up and playing. We want to process our tone through something. We want to create and bend it, and then and do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. So for like someone like me that loves like good heavy fuzz sounds, I get excited when I see other people's stuff and I get to hear it, and it's like, whoa! It's like I make fuzz pedals, you make fuzz pedals too. Like, wow, but yours are so much different, and it's so I just love to hear what everyone else has to bring to the table, and just bring it all in, and just check out everyone's stuff.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Before I forget, we keep talking about your fuzzes and how it's a big focus of your product line. But I think my favorite one I played at NAMM, at least the one that stuck in my memory, was actually your delay.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were talking about all my people. We got super derailed. Yeah, wow.
Well, what's new? You've listened to the show before. You know how this goes. That's fine. At least we were still talking about music.
Yeah, the delay.
You know,
I'm real happy with that. I'm really excited to have something that's not a fuzz pedal that just stands alone as something else. And I think it took me a while to put together some of the more subtle features of it, and I'm real happy with the way it came out, and I'm glad that you like it too.
I thought it was really rad. I remember that's the one I remember being like, I'm gonna have to get one of those. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, seems to be, and it seems to, yeah, it's doing well now in terms of people who've played it, their feedback on it and everything. So boring business talk time. It's good to see. It's good to have something out there that's different and that's getting a good reception, because at least it helps show me that I can maybe now push the boundaries further and get into something else that's going to be a little different. Get away again from the fuzz, get away from the delay, maybe just do something completely different, and I guess with a little more confidence that I can make it sound pretty good.
Right. So did that in kind of exploring that realm? Did that give you any future ideas for different effect types that you want to start playing with? You probably feel pretty confident in your ability to make rad fuzz, but now you got this delay. Does that make you I want to get into some modulation or something now? Well, I guess you got the trim.
It definitely made me want to explore other things. And like I said, as far as confidence, it's just being able to successfully put together a delay just made me feel more that just that if I try any more experiments, not to go in pessimistically, that I'm trying this, but it's probably not going to be that good because I don't know what's going on. I've never tried this before. Now it gives me a little bit more edge, a little bit, because I'm still I'm pessimistic about everything, because that's just me. But it gives me a little bit more towards the edge of, maybe if I plug all this stuff in, maybe it won't be so bad, and I will be able to tweak it into something good. So it's just it's a step in the right direction for some future projects for sure.
Gotcha. Well, you want to go over some of the features on that delay real quick, just because it's not just a straight up delay.
It's a $23.99 delay, that's the chip that it uses. Which, if you're familiar with it, then you're pretty familiar with the sound. It's for those that don't know, it's a digital chip that has a pretty gritty analog sound to the repeats, which is nice because you're able to use a pretty easy to work with, very user friendly digital chip, but get some pretty nice analog sounding results. It's got your standard delay features with your wet control, delay time, the depth, and a lot of delays, if you get that depth too high, it'll start to self oscillate and feedback. It's also got a bright and a dark feature, which will keep the repeats either on the higher or lower end of the spectrum. The higher end is definitely a little more gritty, almost like a hint of a drive, I would say, on the repeats. Where the dark is a little softer, more mellow. And then two features that I really like about it is the warp switch, which is a second foot switch. which with that will actually change the range of the delay time. So you can go, so as you select your delay time with the time knob, you hit the warp switch, it'll slow it down or speed it up. Very much like how the tremolo works on the shell shock, where you can cut it in half or speed it up. So with delay though, it's not just changing the time so much, because it warps the delay and gives you a lot of really interesting undertones, depending on whether you're going to a faster time or a slower time. And then the last feature on this is a momentary foot switch, is the infinite switch, which will automatically ramp up the depth, which is the space control, all the way to full, and will just instantly put the pedal into infinite repeats and like feedback oscillation.
Yes, I love those kind of things. I have so much fun with that.
And there's just to get people some extra control. There's a trim pot that controls the sensitivity of that switch, and to avoid having people crack open the back of it and adjust the trim pot, close it back up, and not like it, I actually mounted the trim pot on the inside edge of one of the side walls of the enclosure, and drilled a hole, like almost like a little window, and then mounted it right on there so that you can access it right there, right on the side of the pedal with a little screwdriver.
That's right. I remember that now. I thought that was really clever, because it is kind of a pain, especially if you have it already on your board, and it's like, I want to mess with that a little bit, and okay, here we go. Rip everything apart, take the back screws off. I thought that was really clever. I don't know that I've seen that done before. Lots of people have adjustable trim pots.
Trim pots are nice. Trim pots are nice because I like that you can, and this goes for any pedal, of course, not just mine. I like that you can tweak controls that weren't presented to you on the face of the pedal as like a user control. It's something that's a little more advanced, that if you want a specific sound, but it's not always, like you were saying, it's not always feasible to cracking open the back. And I just figured for this, because you can use it in a number of different sensitivity settings with that trim pot, just mount it on the side and give a little extra incentive to people to want to play around with it, and give that infinite control with those feedbacks. Just a lot more, open up a lot more options there.
Yeah, because I know I've messed with pedals like that before, and I personally like them to come on really fast. But I've talked to several other guys who like those features as well, but they are backwards. They want them to kind of ramp slow. So I like to hit those switches or just have it go crazy instantly. Right. But not everybody's as weird as I am, I guess. So it's nice.
And obviously with an effect like delay, people use that delay effect for so many different uses. More or less than like a fuzz pedal, which is just going to give you that nice, just in your face, fuzzy, just nice, hard hitting, Velcro-y crunch. With a delay, so many different musical styles will incorporate delay from your really long, spacey sounds, maybe just like a quick slap back. So to have this feature be customizable for what someone's going to use it for was something I thought was pretty important.
Right. Oh, we should probably put out a quick disclaimer real quick. Not all, just because you open up a pedal and you see it has a trim pot in it, doesn't mean you should turn it.
Absolutely not.
Only turn it if the manufacturer says it's okay to turn it. Don't open up your Chase Bliss pedals and start tweaking those trim pots. You will not be pleased with the results.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No.
Some of those are for calibration purposes.
I mean, I definitely don't have anything halfway advanced as those Chase Bliss pedals, but I do have some fuzz that I do prefer it be at a certain voltage on some of the transistors, so I put trim pots in there to really set it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way. So people prefer something a little different. They could change it, but like I said, don't change it unless you know what you're changing.
Yes.
So it definitely won't be the same. Which is why for the Space Invader delay, I put the trim pot, or I made the trim pot accessible from the exterior, because it's sort of inviting you, please turn it, please mess with it. Because it doesn't affect the function of the pedal, only that one control. So please mess with it. Please find out, what you like, and experiment with it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's, it doesn't take up any extra space, like, because you could have used a regular pot, right? But then you have a big old thing hanging off the side. It's a clever idea. I like it. I've not seen that done before.
It's not going to be something that you're going to mess with too much, but it does give you a few different options with that control that you wouldn't have if the control wasn't there at all.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because you could just, set it, but then, like I said, it lets people decide for themselves how fast they want to get nuts.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Good. I'm glad we talked about that, because I wanted people to know about that pedal. I thought it was cool.
No, that's important. That's not even, forget about me and my pedals or anything else having to do with you or me or your podcast. Please, people, don't turn your trim pots unless you know what you're doing, or the manufacturer says it's okay, because you might know what you're doing. Give me some of those complicated Chase Bliss pedals, and me as a pedal builder, I would be completely lost if I turned those the wrong way myself. So
yeah. I'd look into those things, and I'm just like, well, close that back up. That's beyond my understanding as a human. So we'll just let the guys put their magic in the box, and we'll call that a day, I think.
Fortunately, they're nice enough guys, though, that if you do mess it up, you don't have to feel too intimidated. Call them and be like, I messed up my pedal. I turned your trim pots. And,
I mean, they'll laugh at you. They'll laugh at you in the office. They will.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
and they should.
That's fine. People find ways to laugh at me. And usually at my expense, but multiple times a day.
Oh, of course. It's what we do as humans. We're constantly looking to shift the attention to somebody else in a negative way, right? That's how we roll. Well, we talked about Chase Bliss, and we talked about, everybody knows that they're awesome. But like, who else are you seeing kind of, or maybe some guys that aren't as popular or aren't as well known, that are building some stuff that you really like?
I mean, I would say my favorite stuff that I like, and I don't know which is how this goes. I don't know if it's because these guys are guys I've become friends with through doing pedals, so I like their stuff that way, or did I become friends with them because I like their stuff? But either way, definitely big plugs to Adventure. I think their whatever is,
it's awesome.
One of the coolest pedals I've ever played. I remember when Christian had it at Summer NAMM. Not this past. Well, actually, it'd be 2 years. Almost 2 years ago, since Summer NAMM's about to happen again. When he just had the prototype, and he did not even have a working unit ready. Brought it down on a breadboard. For people to try, and it was just, I was completely blown away by it, and it just only gotten better as he tweaked it and improved it. But his stuff is great. That pedal specifically, I love Fuzzrocious stuff. They have a very similar attitude towards fuzz that I do. And the stuff the times that they've moved away from fuzz, they've done it in a really interesting, really unique way. Again, but with that same aggressive attitude towards sound and towards the finished product that I like to have. And Big Ear is fantastic. Caroline. Yeah, I mean, now I start thinking about all the pedals now, because just sit here and just name like every, there's so many people that I meet that have nice stuff or stuff that impresses me, that I'm just like, wow, like it. On one hand, it makes me really happy to be involved in building with this. Other times I'm like, man, I should just give up. These guys are really good.
Yeah, all those guys you mentioned are killing it right now. The whatever, by I believe he just came out with a V2 of that, actually, with the expression control and whatnot. But a quick note about that pedal for anyone who hasn't got to play it: it has the coolest, and even if you don't like shimmer, it has the coolest and most unique sounding shimmer I've ever heard. There's most of them just octave up, octave up, octave up. You know how shimmer reverb works. That one has some sort of something off in there in a good way. There's like a dissonance.
Yeah, it's like a modulating deck.
There's like a dissonance to it that like a different interval thrown in there, and it makes the whole thing sound so much cooler.
It's very cool, but yeah, Christian is definitely working on a pretty advanced level.
Yeah, he's got some
together, and I'm really happy to hear everything he comes out with.
Oh yes, yeah. I was just talking to him the other day. We got stuff. Just keep it.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you whisper, but I mean, either people, you can just turn the volume up on their.
No, they didn't. There's no way they could hear that. We're gonna edit that out. It didn't happen. No, we've done stuff in the past, so people probably wouldn't be too surprised by that. But
yeah, well, so I mean, I remember you guys did your you did that fun battle together that you had me etch.
Yes, exactly. That
was fun to have a little triangle collaboration there. That was a lot of fun.
That was cool, and it turned out great. And I actually that was something I wanted to get into. Your etching specifically, because I haven't really talked to anybody that I can remember for sure about that process, but it seems like really labor intensive and time consuming, but yet so awesome. I don't know anything about it. Can you peel back the curtain a little bit on it?
It's very labor intensive, but again, like I mentioned before, I think with having to build my own circuit boards when I was building kits, but not trying to use a kit.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I could do myself.
Right.
And it was so, even though it's very labor intensive, it's very accessible. Not very hard to try. Because, I mean, obviously, screen printing pedals is pretty standard and pretty simple once you have the technology and the setup and everything. And I didn't have that. And didn't really have the money to invest in that. So I'm like, what can I do that's going to make pedals look cool? It's not very hard. So I looked into the etching. And it's really just all it really costs is the cost of the transfer paper, some painter's tape, and the etching fluid itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of all you do is you print the design out on the transfer paper, iron that on to the pedal, mask up any holes that don't stick, mask up with tape around everything else that you do not want to etch, and then just dunk it in the etching fluid, the ferric chloride solution, and it burns it in. That's pretty much the long and short of it. And it gets labor intensive with the masking, trying to get everything to look really nice and crisp. Sometimes the time spent while the enclosures are etching, make sure you get a deep enough etch, an even enough etch. I have to play around with temperatures, and fortunately summer months are coming, and it's warmer outside. Take everything out to my garage where I do the etching, and it's hot in there. So keeps everything nice. But in the wintertime, and even up to even last month, I was using a space heater to heat up the fluid a little bit in the room to make sure I got a nice deep etch. And then what I like to do at the end of everything is just, when you clean everything off afterwards, I like to spray it with a clear coat.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just to get the black to pop. Some people will wet sand, spray paint, and that makes things even more labor intensive to a point that that's not something that I could do, not even willingly. It's just like matter of factly with time and having to pump out pedals. It's just it'd be impossible for me to put that much effort
Right.
in. It's already about a 2-day process
Oh,
to get
wow.
everything done as it is. So I definitely couldn't afford to make anything longer than that. But
No, that's pretty intense. How long do they have to sit and, etch in the solution?
etching is only about a half an hour.
Oh, okay. That's faster than I thought.
It usually takes more time because I have to set up everything. I have to set up the tubs and pour the solution, get everything good and ready to go, and then checking in on them periodically. But I would average out about a half an hour, and maybe another 10 minutes to clean everything off, remove the tape, get some acetone over the surface and get everything nice and clean. So
Is that per pedal, roughly, or do you do them in a big batch? Or I don't know.
It is per pedal, but I can do multiple ones at once.
Okay.
I could etch. As long as I get enough tubs to put fluid in, I can etch as many pedals as there is.
Gotcha.
But if anyone wants to do that, I would say do not do that in one big tub, because I made that mistake early on.
Okay. What happened?
Definitely use multiple small tubs that only hold 2 or 3 pedals each. The process creates heat, and the heat speeds up the reaction, and the reaction creates more heat, which speeds. It's just this whole cycle. I had a big tub, like one of those under the bed storage tubs.
Yep.
And I had about like 10 enclosures in it, maybe even more. And within about 5 minutes, the whole thing was boiling.
Oh, that's freaky.
I almost boiled and frothed over the sides, and the boxes were burned through to where there was no art left on them at all, and were like impossible to touch. I had to pull them out with tongs. So hot.
Wow.
So it definitely small batch. If you do 10 pedals at once, get 5 tubs for 2 pedals each, and you do not have that kind of that same heat reaction.
I had no idea. That is gnarly. That's like
and the fluid stains. It burns any other metal that it touches. So it's just it's annoying to work with. So the less mess you can make, it's just easier.
Is that something you have to get a specific type of plastic or whatever to put it in? So you don't do what happened in Breaking Bad and put it in the bathtub and have a skeleton fall through the, Oh, I hope I didn't ruin that for anybody. If you haven't seen it by now, that's your problem.
No, I mean, I think as long as it's not metal.
Okay.
It's fine. It's a weird substance that it's highly corrosive and burns through metal, creates all this heat and everything, but yet plastic and it like glass is completely unaffected.
Huh.
It's very, very strange.
And you can just get this at like a hardware store or something, or is it something you have to order?
I order it from electronics suppliers.
Gotcha.
It's the same. It's the same solution that you would use to etch PCBs.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Any electronic supplier sells it as part of their prototyping or PCB manufacturing sites. on their pages, depending on the supplier.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's not hard to get, and it's not super hard to work with once you work out some of the kinks and figure out your how you want things to look. I think I've pretty much got it nailed down about how I like things to go and the system that I have for doing it.
Nice. Well, that's good. I learned something today. Learn something I actually, on most of these podcasts, I end up learning something. So, which is half of the fun in doing it. I still don't know that much, but I know way more than I did when I first started. So it's nice for my brain.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's what it's all about, man.
Nice. Well, we have just about hit that hour mark, and I have failed to bring up, the most important question. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out there right now.
All right, here we go.
But first, before I get that out of the way, let's let you plug yourself. Where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
All right, well, very easy. www.main.ace.fx.com is my website. There's links there for Facebook page, or Instagram. My Reverb page is there. You can check out, I think, demos of just about every one of the pedals. I'm hoping this summer, with more free time I have this coming up this summer, that I'll be able to get new demos, new photos, new everything on the website for people. So hopefully, if you stay tuned, that'll all be there real soon.
Sweet.
I did get myself a new GoPro camera and some video software. So I'm ready to go with some fresh demos. And all I need is just the time to sit down and do it.
Right on, man. All right, we got that official business out of the way. Now this is the heavy hitter. So I hope you're ready.
Oh, yeah. All right.
To really peel back the layers here. So James, what's your favorite kind of pizza?
Favorite pizza?
Yes.
I live like 20 minutes outside New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no favorite pizza. There's no favorite pizza. Give me a New York slice. Done deal.
Just the New York cheese. Just
a good, nice, giant New York slice. I don't need anything else.
Wow. Man knows what he likes. He's got it figured out. That's one thing I
think I've been spoiled.
It seems that way.
Surroundings my whole life.
I'm a big pizza fan. I like many different styles and flavors of pizza. I really need to go to New York City because I've never been there. A, and then B, the other reason is because I need to experience a genuine New York slice. We got New York style pizza over here, but I don't know if they're legit or not. I have no idea. So
I can't speak for Portland. I can't speak for Portland, but I know California pizza is not cutting it.
It's not
even. No matter how much they want to talk about New York style or this and that, it definitely doesn't cut it. Can't speak for Portland, so.
Portland's this big melting pot of places. That's what they say about New York City too, but Portland's got like all kinds of different pizza. Like we have the full pizza spectrum available to us. And so the one pizza place that I've heard is fairly legit is called Escape from New York. And it's what I would imagine a New York slice to be, but that doesn't mean that I have no frame of reference for the real thing. So I'll have to find out.
Some people say, and I don't know how true this could be or if it's true at all, but some people say it's like this New York metropolitan area. Like I'm in New Jersey, but like kind of right in the shadow of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say that it's just like the water here is what makes like New York pizzas and New York bagels that quintessential, food item that they are. I don't know how true that is.
I can buy that though.
But I also don't understand why in all of the time that people have been moving around and making pizzas that some dude from New York just didn't move to some part of the country, made pizza, and it's the same. Somehow it always ends up different. So there might be something to that, but I don't know how it works.
I could buy that. I could definitely buy that. I know that they say the same thing about the beer in our area. They're like, there's something, the water is got a lot to do with that. So I mean, makes sense to me. I'll buy it. What am I, a scientist?
I could buy it. A lot of West Coast breweries make fantastic beer.
Mm-hmm. It could be. I know like the guys that, this is a completely different topic and we're over time, but I don't care. It's my show. Like serious homebrewers. I used to be into the homebrewing, but I never got super serious about it. But I know that like there's guys who have systems and methodologies for taking their local water and making it match as close as they can chemically to water in, say, Belgium or New York or wherever, to like try to match these regional styles of beer. They'll actually like add things to their water to try to get them as close as they can and like measure different pHs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm buying the water thing.
I mean, I'm not a chemist, but I know that water is, a chemical compound. So, hey,
it's like H2 something, right?
Something. There's letters and numbers.
We'll figure it out. We'll take care of this off the air.
Let's bring up a funny story.
Tell me.
That I heard about a joke that chemists pulled on college campuses.
Okay.
Asking the students how they felt or wanted to sign a petition to ban, dihydrogen monoxide.
Okay. That's right. I forgot about that.
Which is just the chemical name of H2O, which is water. But the way they make it sound, you hear this dihydrogen monoxide. It sounds like carbon monoxide. And,
right.
Everyone's like, "Oh, that's terrible. That's the worst thing that's on the planet right now. It's such a threat to the environment." And
we got to get rid of it. We got to ban it. Ban it from our campuses. Ban it from our bodies. We got to get rid of it. That's funny. I would have been like,
I actually don't even know the origin of that or where it came from. I remember hearing that, and I just remember getting a little chuckle out of it.
Yes, that is quite good. I like it. I feel like, we've already went completely sideways. That's probably as good of a note to wrap up on as anything else, unless you have anything else for the listeners before we sign off.
I would think not. I think this is probably the most attention that one person has paid to a conversation with me in probably the last 5 years. So I am. I'm through the. I'm going out and have a party tonight. Wow, man! I've been look at my counter here. I've been on for 68 minutes. This is unbelievable.
68 minutes. Well, you're not just one person is paying attention to you right now. There's going to probably be a few thousand people that are going to sit down and listen to you talk. So hope that's okay.
I'm sorry that I probably ruined your show, because after minute 2, they're gonna turn me off, and they're like, I cannot believe.
If they'll tune in and listen to me, trust me, they'll tune in and listen to anybody. Apparently. I don't know what. Dear listener, I'm glad you're here, but why? Don't you have something better to do? No? Nothing better to do than listen to this guy. All right.
Dear listeners, thank you for putting up with whatever nonsense I was talking about for this long. Because...
And that applies to every week with me. Thank you for putting up with my nonsense. My guests are what make the... I think my guests are what make the show listenable, so thanks for coming on.
Oh, man. Wow. Woof. There's compliments involved. This is... I'm not prepared for this.
Well...
You didn't say... When we talked about getting ready for this, you didn't say there'd be compliments. So
well, I did ask you if there was anything you did or did not want to discuss, though. And if I want to talk about you got nice hair, decent sized biceps.
I wish I could talk about that.
I don't know. I'm just going off the deep end here. You have a nice voice, oh, wow. Probably, I'd give it, 7.8 out of 10 in the looks department. That's solid. No George Clooney, but doing good for yourself.
I'm gonna bring that to my wife as soon as I'm done with you. Okay, 7.8 here.
Yeah, 7.8. Eh? What do you think?
No, I usually when I talk to people from the West Coast, they always seem to enjoy my East Coast. I won't say New York, but close to New York accent.
I do. I quite like it, actually. It's I seen it. Well, we're on minute 70, but I'm still going. Whatever. I seen a thing the other day, and it kind of made me it made me a little bit question why they were doing this. There's like a program in Boston, and maybe this is a common thing, and I don't know about it, but there's a program where people can sign up to learn they go to a class to get rid of their Boston accent. And I'm like, why would anyone do that?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't understand.
I mean, you are who you are, and everyone knows you got to come from somewhere, and especially, almost everyone that I know in New York, and my wife works in New York, and more often than not, the people that she works with are people that aren't from the area. They're from, the Midwest or the East Coast and moving there. And so, it's, I don't really see what the big deal is. Especially if you're not going to go anywhere. If you're going to stay in Boston, you're not going to have the Boston accent.
I don't understand that. I was like, the Boston accent is so cool. Why on earth would you want to get rid of that? Didn't talk like me.
Maybe if you're an actor and shaking it is hard to do for, to get work. But that's a very specific job.
Doesn't seem like there would be. Yeah.
I don't see why your regular person would ever want to do that.
I don't either. If
anything, I would take classes to make my accent more so.
Yeah, make it cooler.
I don't even think I sound New York enough.
What? Yours is mild. It is pretty mild, but it's more. It comes out.
I want to take classes. I want to sound like someone from The Sopranos. That's what I would. I wouldn't try to get rid of it. I'd try to make it more so.
Exactly, intensify the accent, if anything. Why not? I don't know. I'm probably going to catch some heat for this, but I've always thought that the quote unquote, and everyone probably thinks this, right? Wherever they live, but I think the West Coast accent. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because you would be a good person to ask this. The West Coast accent is kind of boring, and it's not really having an accent. Does that make any sense? If I make any sense,
it definitely depends. You specifically, could probably tell me that you were from anywhere, and I believe you.
That's what I mean. That's I don't think
But that's you. But then I know people on the West Coast that have a super from the West Coast, and I talk like this, and
okay, that's kind of California specific.
And then you find out they're from Detroit. So it's
well, that's a good point.
Yeah. So who the cares?
I did this. Well, good point. Who cares? Yeah, you didn't. I don't know. You didn't know this. I'm actually from Japan.
Okay.
No.
You could be lying, but that's a cool story.
You said anywhere. I just thought I would try to go far-fetched on you, but I don't think I...
like that. So, my parents were, were living in Japan, and like they met and had me, and they moved back to the States.
No, that didn't happen. I made all that.
I know all sorts of stories of people that have done all sorts of things. It's kind of nothing would surprise me. Something like that. I mean,
I'm actually from the moon.
It's a pretty feasible story just to say you were born in Japan.
Oh, I'm from the moon. Actually, I was making all this up.
Now you're just telling the truth. So
I have a lunar accent. Is that
all right?
Maybe that's what this is. I don't even know. We better quit while we should have quit a while ago, I guess. But I'll wrap this thing up.
I would say probably we should have quit 72 minutes ago.
72 minutes ago? Okay, well, it's too late now.
When I was still saying hi and having my connection messed up.
We should have just cut it right then. Well,
that's it. Hi, I'm James. Good to see you. Bye.
I make some pedals. You want to see them? Okay, later.
Oh, no, not even that. Don't even worry about that. James is here, and there he goes. In and out. Boom.
There he is. Hey, we were going to sit down with James and talk it. Oh, all right. Well, that's the show for this week. Sponsored by Sinusoid. Check out their guitar cables. See you guys later.
That's right. Sinusoid is the best. Well, I do like their cables. Yeah, it's not even doing a little plug for you, but the Sinusoid stuff is nice.
It is very nice, and don't worry, they will be plugged in the capacity of which they are always plugged at the beginning of this episode that you don't hear. But I
hear it when I listen to. I hear it. I know what's going on.
You know what's going on here. I
know what's going on.
I can't pull the wool over on your eyes.
They're great, but definitely not as good as main.ace.fx.
Oh,
www.main.ace.fx.com. But they're solid.
They're close. Yeah, they're a close second, is what you're getting at. Okay, I'll have to talk to Andy and see what he thinks about this. He's gonna pull my. Great, you just cost me my sponsorship. He's pulling the sponsorship now because of you. I have a feeling.
I told you I would ruin your show.
Ah, you did. You did actually give me that heads up. All right, we're gonna cut it. All right. Here we go. For James, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones.
One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.